I want to just thank Fine Gael senators for bringing this motion forward. It's a wide-ranging motion, and I don't intend to speak on every aspect of the motion. But there's three areas that I wish to address: is the areas of natural constraints, payments, animal welfare, and the Mercosur deal. Last week, I met with representatives of the IFA who stressed the importance to farmers in Sligo, Leitrim, that the government resist European attempts to cut the cap and to see payments under the ANC increased by 50 million to 300 million. In a sector where the word simplification is bandied about and a multitude of schemes, and I'm just listening to this from farmers, seem to be associated with bureaucracy and red tape, there is a natural constraint scheme. It seems to be a very straightforward scheme paid with little bureaucracy in September each year. These payments, which help farmers and with back to school costs, college costs, and we all know that farmers spend their money locally, so it goes back into the local economy. I suppose that the area that I represent often is, the areas where higher ground, poor ground or island farmers are all supported by this scheme, so it's very important for the area for farmers in Sligo and Leitrim. But unknown to me until I started looking into it, this scheme is actually paid 75% to farmers. I understand from the farmers that I met last week that the ANC was reduced under the austerity after the crash, and this 50 million should be reinstated immediately. And Labour, we're calling for it in our alternative budget. It will be out tomorrow. Many farms who are eligible for this ANC payment contain land parcels subject to GAIAC 2, and I would remind the Minister of his commitment given last year to farmers that the implementation of GAIAC 2 will not affect their day-to-day activities and will not result in implementation of fines on farmers who continue to farm these lands. My second point I'm going to raise, I'm also pleased to see a concern for poultry and pigs being shown in the motion with call for capital investment to improve animal health and welfare. Not only is improved animal welfare good in its own right, but the health and the welfare of animals has a direct impact upon human well-being and human health and upon the environment. And I don't need to tell the farmers in this room about this, including water quality through slurry and waste, which in a factory farm setting needs to be disposed of in vast quantities. Recently, my office met with representatives of ethical farming in Ireland who stressed that there is a general conviction among government that animal welfare is important, which is fantastic, but that nothing concrete results from that conviction. So I welcome the sentiment and wait to see what is done to improve the lives of pigs, of poultry and of cattle who can be sold at marts at just 10 days old and exported live outside of the EU and beyond EU protections at just 15 days old. I think we all I suppose we all know that ill treatment of livestock is bad for the animals, but it's also bad for humans, it's bad for the environment. Mercosur trade deal, which has been spoken about here, and unfortunately I missed Minister Hayden's opening remarks, but I think it's a disaster for the environment and for farmers. For the first time in decades, and I've been talking to farmers as well down at the Ploughing Championship, Irish farmers are receiving a decent price for the top quality of the beef that they produce. Irish farmers have made strenuous efforts to reduce their carbon footprint in line with government policy and are doing their very best to help us to meet our legally binding climate targets. And after doing this, there is the kind of worry that the rug is going to be pulled out from underneath them by the EPP's, which is Fine Gael's grouping within the EU Mercosur deal. If we allow the importation of 99,000 tonnes of South American beef into the European market, the negative consequences for the Irish farmers are stark. The beef produced in South America is not subject to the same strict requirements that is required in Europe, and I know this has come up here before, in terms of traceability, animal welfare or health and safety. It can be produced cheaper and in greater quantity than we do here, and it can also be produced without any regard for environmental standards. Beef production in South America is responsible for 65% of tropical deforestation. It would be utter hypocrisy to impose environmental standards and nature restoration upon Irish farmers and to allow the importation of beef from South America at the same time. I would like the Minister to confirm whether a carbon leakage assessment has been carried out against the implementation of the Mercosur deal. A carbon leakage assessment is required under the 2021 Climate Act before any policy, I would ask him, can be implemented. Carbon leakage is defined by the Act as the transfer due to climate policies of production to other countries with less restrictive policies with regard to greenhouse gas emissions. We cannot allow the export of our climate responsibility to South America to facilitate the importation of cheap beef. Farmers and the rural community that they sustain are the backbone of our country. Like many farmers here, I know, are the stewards of our environment, and they, not cheap imports of Brazilian beef, are the guarantors of food safety, food security, and may help us to reach our carbon emissions targets.